Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today on this video I shall be telling a story about how a kid nearly broke my friend's ribs at the beginning of 8th grade, so not really a long time ago, I guess. So it's in PE. I'm hanging out with my friend, not gonna name him, and we're just talking. He makes a joke, I laugh, I put my arm around him, I'm like, man, you're funny. And this kid, and this is the one who currently in the story I'm talking to, the friend who nearly got his ribs broken, and the kid who did it, let's call him George. I don't know why, but we're calling him George for this story. George comes up, pushes me, gets my friend in a headlock, and does like a very like cocky bodyguard kind of way of talking, and he's like, yo, this guy messing with you, man. I'm like, no, we're talking. And then he's like, yo, I'm handling this. And he starts walking away with my friend in a headlock. So I follow him. I'm like, dude, let him go. He ain't doing nothing. We're just talking. And he's like, nah, man, I got this. And then I see him like tighten his grip around my friend's neck. So I'm like, okay, he's doing something bad. So I'm about to come up and try and separate them. And then my friend, he elbows George in the ribs. So George lets go real quickly and and starts grabbing his ribs because, well, he just got elbowed. And then my friend, he quickly grabs a trash can, and like the trash cans in the gym are like pretty kind of tall. So he grabs it, it's empty, so he holds it up to where the top is facing him and the bottom is facing George. And so, you know what George does? George chooses to slap the trash can, grab my friend by the back of his neck, and throw him. And the worst part about that was the bleachers were behind my friend. And the way the bleachers are, there's the bleachers, usually some stairs, and a metal pole. And usually there's also like a gate looking thing that'll fold down so then the bleachers will come out. Well, the bleachers weren't out, so that little gate thing was up. And when George chose to throw my friend, his sternum went straight into the edge of that gate, and his ribs went right into the bleachers. And immediately he fell down, grabbing his ribs, and he wasn't breathing. He couldn't breathe. His face started going red. He had trouble breathing. And George just sort of stood there like he did something good. So I shoved him out of the way. I got down. I kind of helped my friend up. So I helped my friend up, and I was like, yo, you good? You good? Can you breathe? And he like starts shaking his head, and he's like pounding on his chest. So I'm like, alright, this is bad. So I call over the coach. Coach comes over, he's like, what happened? And I'm like, George here threw my friend into the bleachers for some reason, and now he can't really breathe. So Coach pretty much took my friend over to this little spot and sat him down, gave him a bunch of water, and he ended up sitting there for like 2 or 3 minutes, not being able to breathe too well. And it was so bad he had to go off to the nurse. And then he didn't come to school for pretty much a whole week because he had trouble breathing and his ribs were so sore. Now, he didn't break them, so that's why this is almost broke my friend's ribs. He did not break his ribs, but he was severely injured to where he was kind of bedridden. After that, George, he chose to come up to me, and he started talking about, like, how he was in the act of self-defense, like, my friend shouldn't have pulled a trash can on him or some reason, and how it was a, I'll put it up here, I'm not gonna say it, not name for cat, that it was a, that move to use a weapon in a fight. And so I look at him, and I'm pretty much like, dude, you put him in a headlock and started choking the kid. You weren't in self-defense, you were assaulting him. He was in self-defense. And before my friend was off to the nurse's office, he did tell me that he put the trash can there not as, like, to hit George, but to put room in between them, to, like, push him away. And this is just a little tripod thing I'm messing with. But he pretty much didn't try and hit him. He more like just tried to put distance between him and George. So I'm like, he just wanted to get away from you because you assaulted him. And then you chose to nearly break his ribs. What's wrong with you? And then he's like, he continues to go on that it's that word, another word for a cat move, to use a weapon in a fight, just go with your fist. So I tell him, like, if he was getting mugged and the guy who was mugging him had a gun, he most likely wouldn't survive. The guy has a flippin' gun. And he's like, I'll just punch him in the face. I'm like, you try, he's gonna shoot you, dude. And then he continues to go on saying that it was a dumb move, or it's always a dumb move to try and use a weapon in a fight to your leverage. And he's like, just use your hands, dude. If you use a weapon, you're weak. You're a female dog. You're weak. So I'm like, it's for your advantage. And I walk away. Then he comes up trying to apologize to me a bunch for doing that and saying stuff, and I just sort of tell him to, piss off and take a hike. Because I already didn't like him from the get-go. Like, he was not a great friend. The only reason why I ever did hang out with him was because he sort of forced his way into my friend group. So I usually try to stay away from him, but because he wanted to hang out with people that I hung out with, he would try and hang out with me. But that's pretty much the end of the story. My friend, he is doing very well. He's not in the hospital or anything. I mean, even though it did happen a while ago, so you most likely wouldn't be in the hospital. But even after that, he was not sent to the hospital. I mean, he was just to check, but he wasn't really put in like a brace because he broke a rib. He never broke a rib. But that's the end of the story. George ended up moving, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, that's the end of the story. Like the video if you want. You could maybe subscribe if you want. Maybe. You can follow me. You can follow my Instagram at it_is_me right here. You'll be able to see it. Yeah. That's about it. Nothing else really much to say. So, bye-bye.